Picture this. A professional golfer walks into a bar the night after winning a tournament. He orders a drink, then another. The music is loud, the laughter is louder, and somewhere between the celebration and the chaos, he leaves behind his winner's check, $40,000, just sitting there, forgotten. Now here's the question nobody asks. What kind of man does that, and then goes on to win again, and again, and then spends 30 years becoming the most beloved voice in golf broadcasting? His name is Roger Maltbie, and this is his story. Roger Maltbie was born in Modesto, California in 1951. His father, Lynn, was a World War II veteran who built a stable life as a pharmacist, owning several drugstores across San Jose. His mother, Joan, was a nurse who had emigrated from Scotland. Comfortable family, decent neighborhood. Nothing about his upbringing screamed future golf professional. But golf has a way of finding people. Around age 8, Roger and his older brother John discovered the San Jose Country Club not as members, but as trespassers. They would sneak onto the course, grab whatever open space they could find, and play. No coach, no formal training, just two kids sneaking past the fence into a world that wasn't built for them. Here's why that matters. Golf in the 1950s and 60s was a sport for the wealthy. Private clubs, membership fees, unwritten social rules. The kids who grew up inside those gates learned to play with caution, careful, polished, proper. Roger learned something different. He learned to play like he had nothing to lose. Because technically, on that course, he had no right to be there at all. That freedom never left him. It would define everything that came next. Roger Maltbie turned professional in 1973. 2 years later, he earned his PGA Tour card and stepped onto the biggest stage in professional golf. Most rookies spend their first season just trying to survive, making cuts, learning the ropes, staying out of the way of the veterans. Maltbie had other plans. In his very first full season, 1975, he won the Quad Cities Open. Then, just weeks later, he won the Pleasant Valley Classic, back-to-back victories. In his rookie year, the kind of start that makes the entire tour stand up and take notice. At the end of that season, his peers voted him PGA Tour Rookie of the Year. The recognition was deserved, but what made Maltbie truly stand out wasn't just the wins. It was the way he carried himself off the course. Where most tour players gave careful, rehearsed answers after their rounds, Maltbie walked into press conferences and turned them into comedy shows. Journalists loved him. He was quotable, relaxed, and completely unfiltered. In a sport that often rewards restraint and composure, here was a guy who seemed to be genuinely enjoying every single moment. Back-to-back wins in a rookie season is extraordinarily rare on the PGA Tour. But Maltbie wasn't building a brand, he was just being himself. And somehow, that was more than enough. After winning the Pleasant Valley Classic, Roger Maltbie did what Roger Maltbie does. He went out and celebrated. The drinks flowed, the night stretched on, and somewhere between the laughter and the music, he set down his winner's check and walked away without it. $40,000, left behind in a bar. To put that into perspective, $40,000 in 1975 is the equivalent of roughly $230,000 today. That is not pocket change. That is not a minor oversight. That is the kind of thing that should make a man sick to his stomach the next morning. But here is what makes this story remarkable. Maltbie didn't tell it with shame. He didn't bury it or avoid the subject. For decades, he told that story with a grin, laughing at himself the same way he laughed at everything else. It became one of the most retold stories in golf. And that reaction tells you everything about who Roger Maltbie really was. Most professional athletes in that era were carefully managing their public image. Golf, especially, demanded a certain dignity, a certain seriousness. You were supposed to be composed, controlled, respectable. Maltbie never got that memo. Or maybe he got it and decided to use it as a coaster. He wasn't careless with money because he didn't value hard work. He was free with it because he genuinely loved the game more than what the game paid him. The check was just a number. The night, the people, the music, the celebration, that was the real prize. And in a strange way, that attitude is exactly what made him so dangerous on a golf course. In 1976, Jack Nicklaus did something no active player had ever done before. He created his own tournament, the Memorial Tournament, held at Muirfield Village in Ohio. It was designed to be one of the most prestigious events on the PGA Tour. An elite field, a demanding course, a stage built for champions. The very first champion of that inaugural event was Roger Maltbie. But the way he won it, that is the part nobody forgets. Maltbie and Hale Irwin were locked in a sudden death playoff. Hole after hole, neither man blinked. Then came the moment. Maltbie stepped up and hit his approach shot and pulled it badly. The ball flew left, well off target, heading toward the gallery. It looked like a disaster, the kind of shot that ends tournaments. Then the ball struck a gallery rope stake planted in the ground to hold back the crowd. It bounced, and instead of rolling further into trouble, it kicked back and landed on the green. The crowd went silent for a moment, then erupted. Maltbie won the hole and the tournament on the next stroke. When the post-round press conference began, a marshal walked in and presented Maltbie with that very stake, the piece of equipment that had saved his title. Maltbie held it up in the air, turned to Irwin, and grinned. Irwin stared back and said, "No thanks, I've already had the shaft once today." Irwin did not speak to Maltbie for 6 months after that day. Years later, in 1984, when Irwin himself received a lucky bounce off the rocks at Pebble Beach to win a playoff, Maltbie happened to be standing nearby during a post-round interview. He waited until Irwin was mid-sentence, caught his eye, and simply nodded. The interview stopped. Maltbie said quietly, "It's funny how a golf ball can bounce," then walked away. The rivalry between these two men never needed loud words. It lived in the small moments, a raised stake, a silent nod, and 6 months of cold shoulders. By 1985, Roger Maltbie was playing the best golf of his career. He won 2 tournaments that year, the Westchester Classic and the NEC World Series of Golf. He finished 8th on the money list, earning over $360,000 in a single season. For a man whose playing career had taken so long to reach its peak, that was a long way to come. But the shoulder was already starting to talk. The left shoulder that powered his swing had been quietly deteriorating for years. The pain became impossible to ignore. Then came surgery, then recovery, then a second surgery. Golf Digest would later describe it plainly: the injury had derailed his career. Between the physical setbacks and the long rehabilitation periods, the wins stopped coming. And then came 1987, Augusta National, the Masters. After 3 rounds, Maltbie stood at the top of the leaderboard, sharing the lead with Ben Crenshaw, 1 round away from a major championship. 1 round away from the thing every professional golfer spends their entire life chasing. He shot 74 in the final round, 2 over par. He missed the playoff by exactly 1 stroke. Years later, sitting across from a Golf Digest interviewer, Maltbie was asked about that day. He paused. And then, for a brief moment, the man who laughed at everything, the man who turned every press conference into a comedy show, he cried. He called it the biggest disappointment of his career. That reaction says everything, because Maltbie understood, perhaps better than anyone, that his shoulder would never give him another chance like that. The window had opened once. He had been 1 stroke away, and then it closed forever. Some losses follow you quietly for the rest of your life. Augusta, 1987, was that loss for Roger Maltbie. By 1990, the shoulder had taken enough. After a second surgery on his left shoulder, Roger Maltbie could no longer compete at the level he demanded of himself. NBC had actually approached him 2 years earlier, in 1988, offering him a position as a broadcaster. He had turned them down flat. He was still a player. Broadcasting was for people who had stopped competing. Then the second surgery happened, and suddenly television started looking a lot more attractive. At the end of 1990, NBC called again. Maltbie agreed to help with coverage of the Bob Hope Classic, but only on one condition. They had to guarantee him a spot covering the Ryder Cup at Kiowa Island. NBC agreed. What happened at Kiowa almost ended his television career before it began. It was one of the most emotionally charged Ryder Cups in history. In the final singles matches, Mark Calcavecchia lost the last 4 holes of his match and believed he had cost America the victory. He was devastated, inconsolable. NBC producer Terry O'Neill ordered Maltbie to get the stricken golfer on camera immediately. Maltbie refused. "I'm still a player," he said later in a Golf Digest interview. "I had no visions of a TV career, so what did I care?" He told his producer directly, "You stay with him. He'll talk to you, but I ain't doing it. I'm a player and I'm going to respect his rights." Maltbie fully expected to never work in television again. 3 weeks later, NBC called and offered him a 3-year contract. The producer who wanted the interview had hired the man who refused to do it. Because what NBC recognized in that moment was something rare. A broadcaster who understood that some human moments are worth more than any camera could capture. Roger Maltbie joined NBC Sports full-time in 1991. While most on-course reporters kept a respectful distance from the action, Maltbie did the opposite. He positioned himself closer to the greens than anyone else on the broadcast team, close enough that he had to lower his voice to a near whisper to avoid disturbing the players. That whisper became his trademark. Fans and colleagues began calling him the Golf Whisperer, later the Course Whisperer. The nickname stuck because it captured something real, not just the soft voice, but the intimate, ground-level perspective he brought to every broadcast. When Maltbie spoke, viewers felt like they were standing inside the ropes beside him. Then came the summer of 2000, Pebble Beach, the U.S. Open. Tiger Woods was in the middle of one of the most dominant performances in the history of major championship golf. As Tiger walked toward the final green, about to finish 15 strokes ahead of the entire field, Maltbie watched from his position on the course. And in that quiet, unhurried way of his, he said the 7 words that defined his broadcasting career. "It's just not a fair fight." Simple, accurate, perfect. That single line captured what every viewer was thinking, but nobody else had the instinct to say out loud. It became one of the most quoted lines in golf broadcasting history. As golf journalist Michael Bamberger wrote, "What Maltbie's commentary really adds up to is this: golf is a good time, 30 years on the course, and he made every single one of them feel that way." In the fall of 2022, NBC Sports made a quiet corporate decision. They would not be renewing Roger Maltbie's contract. After more than 30 years walking the fairways for the network, the arrangement was simply over. No scandal, no falling out, just a business decision made in a boardroom by people looking at spreadsheets. Golf fans did not take it quietly. Supporters staged peaceful protests outside 30 Rockefeller Center, NBC's headquarters in New York City, not for a political cause, not over a controversy, simply because they did not want to lose the voice that had walked with them through 3 decades of the sport they loved. Maltbie himself responded with characteristic honesty. Speaking to Golf Digest, he said, "They treated me in a fair and honest way, and I have no complaints, but it is tough to hear you are no longer wanted." No bitterness, no public grievance, just a man being honest about something that hurt. The story did not end there. Golf Channel came calling. A new deal was struck. At 73 years old, Maltbie returned to the fairways, this time working select events for Golf Channel and CBS. When asked why he kept going, his answer was simple. Speaking to Fox Sports, he said, "The bottom line is that I want to keep going because I'm a fan of the game." The reason was still the same as the very beginning. He just loved golf. So did Roger Maltbie beat everyone? Not on paper. 5 tour wins, no majors, 1 stroke away from Augusta glory, and a shoulder that had other ideas. By the traditional scoreboard, there were men who won more earned more, and stood on more podiums. But here is what the scoreboard never captured. A kid who snuck onto a golf course because nobody invited him. A rookie who won twice and celebrated like the money didn't matter, because to him, it genuinely didn't. A man who refused to exploit someone's worst moment on live television and got rewarded for it. A broadcaster who whispered his way into 30 years of golf history. And at 73, still walking the fairways because he simply could not imagine being anywhere else. Standing at Pebble Beach in 2025, Maltbie smiled and said, "If I was born the day I won that tournament, I'd be eligible for the senior tour pretty soon here." That is the laugh of a man who has made peace with everything. Roger Maltbie never needed to beat everyone. He just never stopped playing. And in the end, that is the only score that truly matters.